One of the largely unnoticed and uncommented upon announcements in the budget has been the announcement of a government-funded venture capital fund in the amount of 5 billion rupees, which is roughly 16.5 to 17 million dollars, which is not an insubstantial amount. As the finance minister announced, this fund would be to help fund tech startups, which are facing financial crunch. I am broadly supportive of such an initiative, provided, and there are many caveats, provided that it is well structured, well governed, well operationalized, well thought through, and also would be tech-enabled startups as opposed to pure tech, and would be sector agnostic, so to speak. It would be very important, and this has happened in many countries, so there would be no Silicon Valley if the US government had not been willing to take early stage risk in innovations, technology innovations and other innovations, which we are now the beneficiaries of. But it's very important to understand that, at what stage of development of a startup or an innovation such a VC fund could play a role. And in my estimation, one of its key benefits would be to play a de-risking role. And what would that be? That the government, as in the taxpayer, would be taking the earliest stage risks to promote and catalyze innovations that are typically extremely high risk and typically are very difficult to get funding for. So it would be almost right after the concept stage, and it would be seed money, but at the earliest stage, and that would be de-risking those investors who are relatively more shy and in risk-wise, and they would not be willing to come in at such an early stage. So a government-supported VC fund would be able to invest at the earliest stage, and they would take the company to the point where more risk-averse investors would be willing to come in alongside. So that would be a very important role to play. Secondly, it would be really important that such a fund would take a broad scope of the kind of financial tools they could provide. One of the most important financial tools right now, which startups are not able to access in a reasonable and cost-effective way, is debt. So this fund could provide really well-priced, well-structured, company-appropriate debt to these startups. The other thing that this VC fund might think of is providing guarantees, which means that they would go to a bank and say, if you provide X amount of a loan to this startup, we will guarantee 60%, let's say, by example, 60% of the risk would be on us, 40% would be on you, or it could go as high as 80 or 90%, but they would, provide that guarantee to unlock a credit from the commercial banking sector to these startups. The third thing would be that an equity position would remain a minority position. So the government VC fund could cap its ownership to a maximum amount of 30%, and it would be highly exceptional if they go beyond that. Why do I say that? Because you don't want to disenfranchise, so to speak, the entrepreneurs and make them lose incentive, and by no means do you want to give the impression that the government is going to be owning a company when they come in with their investment. And by no means do they want to turn the entrepreneurs into employees of the government, which is something they never signed up for. So no way will this fund be playing in any way a predatory role. What it is playing all along is a catalyzing role, is an incentivizing role, but by no means is it playing a predatory role in any way. The third thing is that Pakistan, the ecosystem has not done a good job in attracting impact investors. And I think because of the stage of development of the startups, the stage of development of the market, it's very important to have a broad range of the type of capital that's coming in. And I think this fund could give a high preference to those startups that are creating impact. So low cost housing, financial services for those who don't currently have access to affordable, well-priced, well-structured financial services, a whole menu of financial services, not just credit. They could also provide, a startup, let's say, looking at the the agriculture sector to help farmers. How do you really build a farm to fork pipeline that helps farmers, improve their yields and make sure that the income level of the farmers is going up. So impact investments of such a flavor, so to speak. So it would also be important for this VC fund to encourage impact investors from overseas to come and to invest alongside as a side-by-side investment. So there's many ways that this fund could be structured that provides a tremendous amount of impact for the ecosystem, provided, and this is really important, provided it is well-structured, well-governed, well-implemented. I think 17 million or close to 17 million is quite a lot of money, especially if the investments are going to be small ticket investments. And I think that the earliest stage of investment, there will be small ticket investments. So this money could go very, very far. I highly encourage the ecosystem, Pakistani founders, entrepreneurs, existing investors to demand more answers from the government that, okay, so you've made this announcement, but what does it mean? What are you thinking about? How are you planning to structure this? How are you planning to govern this? Who's actually going to be the fund manager? How are they going to be compensated? What are the incentives that are going to be given to the fund managers? And so on and so forth. It is a very important announcement. It has gone unnoticed in all the other larger issues. But I think it is important because there is a financing crunch. There is a growing negative perception of the Pakistan market, and no fault of the entrepreneurs who've done an amazing, tremendous job of raising the kind of funds they've raised and the kind of companies that they have created. Pakistani market is a huge market unto itself, let alone exports. And I think if the government gets this right, it could be a real contributor to making sure that the ecosystem is further catalyzed. So I highly encourage people in the ecosystem to demand answers and to pay more attention, and to also demand an answer of what is the timeline that the government is thinking of in implementing such a fund. So I'm certainly hoping that in the coming days we will see more information regarding this fund.